Good morning, Raleigh Road Baptist Church. It's time for your weekly coronavirus Sunday school lesson until we can be together again. Good morning, Raleigh Road, or should I say Wednesday. It's about 11:38. It's not Saturday. Susan and I are taking a trip, so got a lot of things going on. I've got to get some things done before we leave. So I'm taking my lunch break. Going to start on the lesson. May take me a couple of days on my lunch break to get it done. Just to mention, we're still in Song of Songs. So this will be a PG-13 lesson. There is no way for me to make it for a child. So I'll be very tactful in what I say. The title of today's lesson is Relational Investment. And we're starting off with the phrase, just as a couple must invest in their relationship, believers must also invest in their relationship with God. Now, when we're young, our priorities are different than when we get older. When we're young, we'll invest in getting an education, a diploma. We'll invest in our careers. We'll invest in cars. Then if we have enough resources, we might go out and do other things. But as we get older, our investments, our thoughts on how we want to invest are different. We tend to start looking at mutual funds, retirement plans. So our needs change across time as our perspectives change. So whether we're young or whether we're old, however, we have to be wise when we see the value of investing in relationships. Beginning, number one, with our relationship with God. Now, to give you a little background, we're going to be in Song of Songs, chapter 5:2 through 8, chapter 14 is what the scripture for this morning are all about. Now we have to understand that this section of Song of Songs gives God's directive about marriage. Now he speaks and declares that the two, husband and wife, shall become one. Now that goes back to Genesis 2:24. Now this is actually a poem, and it speaks of a man and woman and they get married. And now they're learning how to grow in this relationship, to be one. So early on in their relationship, not their relationship, but their marriage, they demonstrated to each other the value that they had in each other by spending time. When they faced conflict from misunderstanding, they work to resolve this conflict, and they often affirm each other. Now in this scripture, the bride describes the groom in loving ways that underscores her love for him, and he tells her that he's never seen anyone more beautiful. Now, this is a husband and wife affirming each other. Now, in this poem, again, we believe that this is a poem, the man puts his wife on his chariot and rides her through the city so he can show off. It's kind of like a young groom. He looks at his wife and that true love feeling. He wants to show off and show the world, and I say this, hey, look what I caught. So he describes her beauty through words, but it's not just her physical beauty, it's the beauty of her spirit, of her soul. So she, in response, assures him of her absolute confidence in him. Now, they're completely committed to each other, and they have mutual commitment, and that allows them to give themselves to each other without any reservation at all. Now, because of her trust in the love they shared, she took the initiative to strengthen their marriage by getting him away from home for a little while. Now, those of you that know Susan and myself, we travel a lot. So this, for us, is our marriage building time. Now, the trip we're getting ready to take, on this trip, we're going with another couple. Now, that doesn't mean that this time of growing our marriage is going to change.
we're going to grow our marriage. So when the couple in the poem, when the couple in Song of Songs get together, it makes their love for each other grow. Um, Now, there is a part in verses 7, in chapter 7 through 8, that she always wanted him with her. Now, at the end of the poem, the man and the woman appeared together again on his chariot. Now, she's showing affection uh, towards him because she leaned on him. And she talked with him about his desire for him to keep her in his heart. So this love between a husband and wife, as we bring out in this section of Scripture, is the most wonderful thing. Now, in last week's lesson, I spoke of the fact that recently I got the privilege to perform a marriage ceremony. Now, that was only me speaking some words. God had already brought this young couple together, and they wanted to start melding together as a couple. And that as they got ready for the wedding, they had to change their date, they had to change what they were going to do, and it brought them closer together. There was a lot of conflict and a lot of things that not necessarily conflict, but a lot of things that were adversarial in their relationship as they planned a marriage, planned their wedding day. And to watch this young couple just bless my soul as they would take time to speak and work together. So today, as we get into the scripture, we're going to explore the text. And the first scripture is Song of Songs, chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. Now, when I teach from work, I'm actually using a different version than what's in your Sunday school quarterly, if you happen to have one. Your quarterly has Christian Standard, and I'm using ESV at work. It's because I download the lessons so I can typically study during the week. But I just wanted to bring that out. So, Song of Songs, chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. I opened to my beloved, but my beloved had turned and gone. My soul failed me when he spoke. I sought him, but found him not. I called him, but he gave no answer. The watchmen found me as they went about in the city. They beat me, they bruised me, they took away my veil. Those watchmen of the walls, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, if you find my beloved, that you tell him, I am sick with love. Now, there are many biblical scholars that believe that this is actually a dream. So the bride is having a dream, and she goes to let her husband in, and he's not there. She calls for him, and he doesn't give an answer. Now, this is a tragic thing. When a husband neglects the call to meet the needs of his wife, it's equally sad when the wife fails to meet the needs of the husband. Now, this failure to meet the needs is probably, if you searched and looked at the reasons for divorce, would be tied up into every single one of them. Unmet needs makes a marriage end in tragedy. Now, Song of Songs 5:7 has been viewed by some as a reference to abuse, maybe even rape. Now, we know that this is actually speaking of a bride of Solomon in this poem, so we don't think that the city guards would have done this type of thing to the bride of Solomon. Therefore, it leads to another thought that this is a dream. Now, this does show that if a husband does not take care of his wife and meet her needs, then he leaves her out to the world, and it's a very nasty world outside. So, in this, we have to think that there's some key doctrines in this, and this desperate young bride is looking for her husband. And if you look at the the scripture, marriages get into trouble when spouses are distant emotionally, even though they may be present physically. So, in a couple, you have to be together. You have to have communications. Um, we can also look at this that as the spouse is searching for her husband, should be the way that we are searching for God. Um, so, this garden of marriage or this garden of our relationship with God has to be most tenderly cared for. Susan and I have some plants out front, and this year I've not set up our automatic sprinkler system. Just not enough plants to do it. It's easier to go out and water the plants every once in a while. But every now and again, when it's hot, I'll look and come in, and the plants will be wilted, and either Susan and I will go out and tend to them. But if we didn't tend to those flowers, they would die. Just the same way a marriage or relationship between two people. The next scripture is the call for remembering. Song of Songs, chapter 5, verse 9. What is your beloved more than another beloved, O most beautiful woman? What is your beloved more than another beloved, that you thus adjure us? Now, the young women respond to the challenge of the bride just to remind her of why she was attracted to her husband in the first place. Why did she choose her husband over all the other men in town? Now, it's so loving and so wonderful to watch two young people that are coming together as couples. It's even as much fun for me to see older couples that are coming together. I recently saw people in their 80s who recently got married together, and it's a wonderful thing to see. But in a marriage, after a few years, when children come along and things kind of get into the doldrums, we forget those wonderful things that attracted us to each other. So the reasons that a wife or a husband had for entering into marriage can be forgotten, and we have to remind ourselves of the good things. Now, one thing I say to all couples that are getting married: don't marry your spouse thinking you're going to change them. They're going to change, but they may not change in the way that you would like them to. So we have to always be continually reminding ourselves that this is the person we chose to be with. We have to remind ourselves why we got into the relationship in the first place, and many times that can help us to stay in the relationship. Now, the next scripture, the crux for celebrating, Song of Songs 5, verses 10 through 16, states, My beloved is radiant and ruddy, distinguished among 10,000. His head is the finest gold. His locks are wavy, black as raven. His eyes are like doves beside streams of water, bathed in milk, sitting beside a full pool. His cheeks are like beds of spices, mounds of sweet-smelling herbs. His lips are lilies, dripping liquid myrrh. His arms are rods of gold, set with jewels. His body is polished ivory, bedecked with sapphires. His legs are alabaster columns, set on bases of gold. His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as the cedars. His mouth is most sweet, and he is altogether desirable. This is my beloved, and this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. Oh my gosh. Do you think this bride loved her husband? I'll tell a story. And when Susan and I first started dating, never will forget it. Here I am, all gallant, thinking that she sees a lot in me. And I find out that she is describing me as Shrek to her friends. I'll take it. So the bride is just going on and on and on about the attributes uh, of the physicalness of that attracted her to her husband. Now, there will be seasons when the physical dimension of a marriage will be less important than the friendship dimension of the marriage. It's important when young people, especially, get married. You look at your wife and you look and you see how beautiful and attractive she is by the world's standards, and then age, time, beauty will fade, but what's on the inside will never change. So, intentionally celebrating each other in marriage is critical. Neglected marriages are rarely successful marriages. Now, PG section here, okay? One dimensional relationships never survive. If a relationship is based on this physical and sexual attraction alone, then the emotional support needed for the marriage may be absent. Now, if a marriage is just about friendship and there's the neglect of the sexual intimacy, a marriage may be passionless. So, successful marriages are multidimensional, emotional, mental, and physical. And that's the key to a great marriage. You have to have that emotional support, have to have that mental support, and you have to have the physical support. Now, men, I'm going to speak to you because our brains are wired differently than females. Walking by your wife and touching her on the shoulder, touching her on the elbow, holding her hand, giving her a hug is the most wonderful way to physically show your affection to your wife. Now, there are some ladies that just don't like doing those kind of things, but most, and the important thing is discuss it. Have open and honest communications with your wife about what she would like to have. And ladies, you need to also speak to your husbands about what they like. Now, speaking of mine and Susan's relationship, again, we got married almost 8 years ago. And when we first started dating, oh, I was head over heels, and she was running. So for months, I would tell Susan, I love you. She would say, thank you. But when Susan would pass me, she would reach and touch me. Little small touches, just a touch on the back, just a brush, just holding my hand, other things, showed me that she loved me even before the words came out. So words are important, but so are actions. So let's talk about in my context. Godly marriages should be characterized by mutual moral and emotional support. Goes without saying. Mutual moral and emotional support. You have to be there. Now, most men, they just fall to pieces with a girl or a lady crying. Give you a hint, fellas. Just being there counts. Just being there. Godly marriages are founded on a commitment to remain faithful to each other throughout life. Now, I said this recently. A man and a woman that are married will be tempted. You will be tempted. But the thing you must do is to have this foundation that you're going to be faithful. And you're not going to allow yourself to get into a position that you could fall into that temptation. Now, godly marriages also include mutual affirmation of one spouse. Tell your spouse something good that you like that they're doing. Take time every day. Love your spouse. Love your spouse. Do what you need to do. Now, today, I didn't take a lot of time stopping and starting. I may go about doing some editing. And over to my left, I'm not sure which way it's showing on the camera right now, is the view that I should be able to look at with my camera. So again, I might do some editing. I got one spot I know I have to take out, but not a whole lot. It's a great day. Husbands, cherish your wives. If you're in a marriage that's in trouble, seek out some help. Most marriages can be salvaged, can be saved if the right help is brought. I love my wife. My wife is the gift from God that I was looking for. Way back when, I wrote out a list of 10 things I'd like to find in a spouse. God sent me 20. He knew more what I needed than I knew what I needed for myself. So this morning, we're at the end of our Sunday school lesson. Going to end it as always with a song. I hope you like it. I love you guys. Have a great day.
Here's my hand, it's yours to hold. I give myself to you.
Here's my heart, please make it yours. I give my love to you.
We are two becoming one. Here I am, here's all of me. You have all that once was mine.
And here's my promise, I'm yours to hold. I'll stay here by your side.
We are two becoming one. We are two becoming one. May what He's joined be not undone. May our love put Christ on display. When we're weak and when we're strong, when it's hard to carry on, oh God, we want your love on display. We are two becoming one. Here's my life, I lay it down. I give up myself for you.
And here's my will, I submit to you. I will follow where you lead.
We are two becoming one. We are two becoming one. May what He's joined be not undone. May our love put Christ on display. When we're weak and when we're strong, when it's hard to carry on, oh God, we want your love on display. Oh God, we want your love on display. Here we are, we're yours and yours alone. God, here we are. May what you've joined be not undone. We want the world to see your love through us. We want forever, yeah. So we are two becoming one. May what He's joined be not undone. May our love put Christ on display. When we're weak and when we're strong, when it's hard to carry on, oh So we are two